My name is Erik Van Horn. I bought my first franchise in my 20s, and since then, I've owned 6 brands with 25 stores in 8 states. I've also helped 1,000 people find the right franchise for them. People like us who are not cut out for the 9-to-5 and like to work smarter, not harder. How do we find the right franchise, buy it, grow it, sell it, and how do we do it in a way to own the business without it owning us? Those are the questions, and I'm on a mission to give you the answers. Welcome to Franchise Secrets. Welcome to the Franchise Secrets podcast. Erik Van Horn here with Megan Reilly, founder of Tippy Toes. You may have seen her on Shark Tank. You may have seen her somewhere on social media. She's a mama 3. I want to get into that too, the mama 3 daughters just like me. And then you've just done some really, really cool stuff that a lot of franchisors haven't done. So when I first met you, I'm like, I need to get to know her and to interview her. So thanks for coming on.
I am so excited to be here, Erik. Thanks for having me.
So we've met on Clubhouse. I mean, you're my first guest that I met on Clubhouse, and we exchanged some DMs, and you've been in some of my rooms. I've been watching you, you've been watching me, and now here we are.
Yes, I am no fool. When I see you in a room and I hear you start talking about franchising, I'm like, I am going to be following this person throughout Clubhouse and wherever else. So no, this is my first Clubhouse podcast though, too. So it's awesome. It's just cool. I love that there's always, new ways to connect, and Clubhouse is a great resource for that.
Dude, we've been having fun on that. Now you're in the Franchise Secrets community on Facebook and giving value in there. And so I'm super glad that our paths crossed. Let's go. I'm trying to think of where to even start. I wanted to talk about Mama 3. You're like a businesswoman and a Mama 3. We're going to get into Tippy Toes and Shark Tank and kind of the cool things that you're doing with that brand, how you've grown it. I think it's a really cool brand, but I want to know, like, Mama 3, being in business.
Yeah, it's full throttle. It's exactly what I wanted. It's exactly what I asked for. And I think that's kind of an important point to start off with is, when I was dating my husband, when we knew we were going to do this, I was like, I really want to raise my kids. I really want to do that. But I also have really ambitious work goals, and I want to do that too. So it was kind of like that was my plan all along. And I'll be honest, when I was 24, I didn't know how challenging it would be. Like, it's tough, but it's also exactly where I want to be. I am very connected with my kids. Back in the good old days when they went to school, I was at pickup and drop off, and I volunteered in school. But I also had conference calls every minute in between, or, was traveling. And so, I have an incredibly supportive husband, which is vital for me. And he's all in. When you run a business, it's a way of life. It's not, you're not punching a clock. I sit on the couch and work many nights, but that's fun for me. I enjoy that. And I knew that early on. I knew I liked working because I always had.
Why? How early on did you know that? When did you get bit with the entrepreneurial bug? Did you grow up in an entrepreneurial family?
So not entrepreneurial family, sales family. My parents are amazing with people. My dad was in print sales for years. And my mom was the manager of a orthodontic office. So kind of ran everything up front, and they were incredible with people, and they're very pivotal in, I think, me enjoying people and wanting to serve people. But I was 8 and I would come home from school and I'd put on a business outfit and play Architecture Alley, which was my pretend business at home. So for me, I look back again, the moment I wasn't like, I'm going to be but I wanted to pretend business when I was a kid. And then I always had, in college, I remember I started to I just told my friends I was going to start teaching aerobics classes at a local studio. So I was like, come, so my friends paid me to teach classes. In college, I went door to door to try to be a maid. I was fired immediately because I'm a terrible housekeeper, but I was always wanting to, applying for a job wasn't ever really on my radar. I didn't really think of that. So it's always kind of been inside of me to create something and really to serve people too.
So how old are the kids now? 3 girls, right?
Yeah, three girls, 4, 6, and 8.
So mine are 6, 8, and 11.
Oh,
And
okay.
yeah, so I know what you're going through. What are they like? Are they when you're on the couch, a phone call comes in? Because I remember when I grew up, my parents owned a construction company, and back then the
Okay.
phone was on the wall. Phone call would come in and be like, "Shh, quiet." And now
Yeah.
my girls know me, like, "Hey, Eric's in the recording podcasts or on a Zoom or
Mhm.
something like that. Be quiet." And it's just normal for them. And I'm seeing other things that they are just catching because I'm in
Yeah.
business. What about you?
Mhm.
Are the kids like that as well? They're just watching
Totally.
you and it's just part of their normal life?
Yeah, it is. It's very, that's all they've ever known. Like I was running Tippy Toes before I had them. And so, when they were babies, I had the play mat next to me and I was on the computer and they were playing and I'd stop and I'd play. And, so it's always been like when people are talking about balance and times and structuring your time, appreciate it for them, but it is not like I am just like I'm everything is weaving in and out, and that's has worked for me. And I think someday maybe it might be easier to do that, but right now it's like when they need me, I try to be there, and it's just something I've learned to manage. I'm sure someone would be like, "That's a terrible way to do it," but it works for me, so I don't really care.
It doesn't matter
um,
what somebody else
yeah,
thinks.
yeah, I don't, I'm sure, whatever. Just sure, it's been studied to do it the other way, but for me, it's just their lines are blurry. They definitely know, and there's times when I'll be like, our company is Tippy Toes. We serve families and kids. So if a kid's screaming on the background, even back when I was operating and direct with customers, if a kid screamed in the background, that was like par for the course. Like that's what we do. Like so so they definitely know. There are times when I'm on a call. I'm in my podcast studio now, so they know like podcast studio. I have 2 doors between me and the kids, and one is locked. So I'm in a safe space right now. But they do like so. COVID hit, and they were like, we want to do a lemonade stand. I'm like, we can't do a lemonade stand. So, because we couldn't like connect, like,
Yeah, you can't
you know,
you can't spread COVID through lemonade stands.
exactly. So we said this, but they wanted to do something. They wanted to do like a stand. I'm like, let's do a free joke stand. And then they took that and ran. They made
That's
signs. They
awesome.
did this. So we were in our neighborhood and they were doing that. And people were trying to pay them, but I was like, we can't take anything. So they definitely always want to find a way to like sell stuff, give to people, like so it's definitely ingrained in them. They want us. My daughter makes jewelry all the time and she's like trying to get her inventory up leading up to the spring so
See,
she can sell it.
even the fact that you say my daughter's doing this and the word inventory comes in with it is awesome. My girls have a chicken egg business, and because
That's
they
awesome.
decided it, they're like, we want to buy
Hmm.
more chickens, and so we don't need 30 eggs a day for our family. So they're like, we probably should just start a business. And then I thought
That's
this will
awesome.
be great because now I can teach them business, and so they started to sell eggs. And then grandma, my mom was one of the customers and we were running short on eggs. And my mom, their grandma said, don't worry, I'll get eggs from somewhere else this week. And my oldest, like, we can't lose a customer. Like we can't lose a customer. So they're not seeing grandma's grandma, they're seeing grandma as a
Right.
customer
She's a
and
customer.
yeah. And so now we get to talk about customer retention and
That's
how we
so
keep
good.
customers. And it was all her idea. And she went
Hmm.
out and she's like, we got to go get some more eggs, and moving chickens around that are trying to lay eggs to grab the
I love
eggs
it.
to be able to put another one in to make a dozen to sell to grandma. But I
It's the
just thought it was
best.
so cool that that's just part of their vocabulary. And I think, and you probably see it too, people are buying into your franchise at Tippy Toes, and people want to buy franchises because they want family legacy. Some of these people grew up in corporate
Hmm.
America and they're like, I want a legacy for my family. And they want their kids or their kids to grow up in an environment like this versus mom and dad clock in and clock out. They're gone, they're home, they're gone, they're home. And there's no work-life integration or balance or whatever you want to say.
However that
So
looks. I
yeah.
totally agree. And our franchise, we see that a lot. So we have, recitals. And so you go to a recital at Tippy Toes, usually, dad is like working the sound booth or the stage and the kids are welcoming people. And it is like, and people, that that is a value for them. That is a family working together. We just had one of our new franchise owners hit a number, and she was like, my family all celebrated. My daughter made me a poster because I hit this, and there's something beyond, and I'll say this probably many more times, but we like to talk about how we're more than dance. Like it's so much more than that. There's so many lessons. And to your point, just about having kids, like there's so many lessons, like talking about failure. Like it's so easy to talk about that when they're talking about, she breaks a piece of jewelry that she's trying to make. I'm like, yeah, sometimes that happens. Sometimes it doesn't go right the first time. So I love it.
Sometimes there's a pandemic.
Sometimes schools get shut and you can't go in there and teach dance anymore. So there's endless lessons, and I love it for that. And I'll be honest, like there are times when I'm like, where's the balance isn't real. Like balance isn't, it's just kind of, you're navigating, you're ebbing and flowing and figuring out where your focus is. But the key is to focus on what matters to you. And so it's somewhere between my work and my kids, and it goes back and forth. And
I was going to say how it shifts at different times. Like right now, we're after Christmas recording this, and we're in the new year. And next week I'm going to Florida for 2 weeks. I'm going to be there with the family, and I couldn't go on a date with my wife this week. The kids don't see me very much this week because I'm recording podcasts. I'm doing everything for the next 2 weeks, so I can spend the last 2 weeks in January just focused on them doing whatever I want to do with the family. So it does ebb and flow, and businesses at times has definitely done that for me.
Yeah, I totally agree. When the pandemic hit, I was working literally like 18 hours a day, and just to figure us, to shift us, to pivot us. And then that went away, and then but I think it's kind of knowing that there's not going to be a structure that you're going to like set into the schedule and that's going to be it forever, which I think that's part of the appeal. I think people who find themselves running a business, part of what they like is the flexibility. To me, that's the greatest thing, is the flexibility.
How do you pull out of that because I know once you are busy and you are going and going and going, that starts to become normal, and just the normal routine of getting up early, working and working late. At least it has been for me at different times. How do you kind of shift gears and change speeds?
A lot of times it's like, I just can sense it in my gut. I'm like, where I start to not enjoy working. That's when I'm like, I need to take a beat because I love working. That's the truth. I love working. And so if I ever feel like I'm not happy working, I'm like, I think I need to take a step back. This year has been odd because, it's been really a challenge for Tippy Toes. We go into schools. And so that, the pandemic has been very difficult, but we've also had a ton of solutions and a ton of new things. So there's a lot of creation. And then I also launched a podcast, and that all kind of just happened time-wise. It was just kind of interesting how the timing happened. So it's been really busy, more so like when people are talking about organizing closets during the pandemic, I am like, that is not the pandemic that I have been living in. But and it's been harder, and frankly, we haven't gone anywhere, so that it's been a challenge during this. But I definitely feel it in my gut. And when I'm unhappy working, I know that's a signal that's like, okay, like give yourself a break, take some time. And then it's easy to dive into your kids at that point, because and to like a few days or whatever it is, it's easy to just be like, I'm going to be at the park. Like that's where we're going to be, and I'm going to be on the swing. I'm not going to be on my phone.
Yep. And then you make that decision a couple of times, you recognize it. For me, I see my kids, they're like, they're looking at me, or they make a comment about the phone or something like that. And then I'm like, that's their perception. It's reality also. And I need to just, then that's kind of it for me. I'm like, okay, I can't do this because I don't want them to perceive me like that, whether it's true or not true. That's when I have that kind of moment, I need to change something here. I want to shift gears and go into Tippy Toes. Where did that thing start? Let's go back to the beginning and then kind of go through that story.
Okay, awesome. So the story, how it started is great. So my sister actually started the company. She got fired from a waitressing job. She and I really wanted to go to.
Is it hard to get fired from a waitressing job? I was a server and I never got fired, and I was not a very good one.
You know what? She was probably really good at it too. But when you don't show up for a shift and they told you ahead of time that if you don't show up, you're going to get fired, and then you don't show up, it makes it a lot easier to get fired. Okay. So yeah, we had it coming, or she had it coming. So we wanted to go to this football game. There's a miscommunication. She didn't really think she'd get fired, but she also didn't really care. We went to South Bend to go to a football game, and she came back without a job, and she had a car payment. My parents were like, you got to figure something out because we're not paying for your car. And so it was like, why don't I just go into daycares and offer dance classes? We danced growing up. Like, it wasn't ever competitive, but we danced, 4 or 5 hours a week, and we loved it. It was a happy part of our life. And it was very natural for her to be able to go in and do that. So she went in, and as a part-time sophomore in college, she was like, I went into a kinder care and they said, yeah, you can come teach. And then it was like, oh my gosh, like, then she was able to make her car payment. And it was easy for her. It was natural.
Easier money. There's probably more money, easier money than was serving.
Totally. Especially, yeah, totally. I mean, it was absolutely easier and a blast. Like, she loved it. She was in charge. She was creating. And she is a type that, like, she colors outside of the lines. You see her take notes. It's like this way, this way, this way. And it might be on the back of, like, a box of water or something. Like, that's how she operates, which works out great. Because I'm a little bit different from that, but the creation is easy and fun, and she was in a natural space. So that's what I like to mention is, like, she needed money. She needed to find a way to make money, and she used what was natural for her, which was communicating with people and teaching dance. So it worked. That kept working. So she did it part-time when she was in college. She's 3 years older than me. So I came to the same school a few years later, and I started, again, it was like easy. Like, why wouldn't I do that? So just started going and doing the same thing, teaching classes. Life changed. She moved. I switched schools. So now I'm in Stillwater, Oklahoma, going to Oklahoma State. And I'm like, well, I'm just going to go and start it here. So just go in and go to the schools and get in. And then you're making money. That's it. We knew how to do it. I mean, it was a cost of flyers at the time. Like, our model is really interesting because we don't have to have it can be very, lean on the front end. You need to go in and get the sale at the school and then get the sale with the parents. But, like, it takes flyers and being there and being the face that they can see. It doesn't have to have, too much more. And so that's how it started. And that's how it started, like, in the very beginning.
When did you think, so you started out when did you think, like, this might be something bigger? What were you going to school for? And when did you have that moment, like, this might be something more than me, than what I think it is?
Yeah. So I think when Sarah graduated and she didn't have to look for a job, it was like, okay, that's cool. Like, this is going to be, it can be really what she does, and the dreams started for us at that point. Like, what else could we do? Like, what could Tippy Toes be? Like, we named it Tippy Toes right off the bat. She named it Tippy Toes right off the bat. So that was great. And that was a wonderful one of those things you look back and you're like, that was a really strong, important part of our story, because the name is, if I may say so, great. And it's been a positive thing. Our logo and all that stuff was there from the beginning. So that, I think, her being able to do it full time out of college, she hated school. And so to not have to have a job, like, that was motivation for her to not have to do anything else other than work on this. I went to school to be a registered dietitian, knowing that it would just be functional. Like, when I started, I was like, I like science, I like nutrition, I like, health, I was into sports. So I went to school to be a registered dietitian, knowing that I was probably going to be doing Tippy Toes, but also feeling like I could help strengthen the brand in a way in that it would be focused on childhood health. I mean, we're teaching dance. So we wanted a lot of back to more than dance. We want it to be a positive experience for kids being active. Like, yes, it is dance, but dance is our vehicle to do so many other things that we do in our classes. So once Sarah was able to go full time, I think we both knew this was going to be our calling, and this is going to be what we're going to spend, time building this brand and finding out what it could be.
So take me from there to franchising. Just collapse those time frames. Like, what was the time frame between there and when you actually started a franchise?
So 1999 was when Sarah went into the first one to make a car payment. And then we sold our first franchise in 2009. And so it was many years of her and I doing, teaching it on our own, having managers. We spread it around the country. So, we were in Cincinnati and, Kansas, or Missouri, Oklahoma, Texas before we franchised. And
really?
We were operating.
So who was doing it? Like, did you guys just set up managers there? Really?
Yeah, and we did a lot of the management with customers and stuff, but yeah, we had managers going, that were kind of the really like almost lead teachers because we did a lot of the management with staff, with teachers and or with customers. So yeah, we did all of that for a number of years, which was, I mean, I look back and I love it because it helped so much as we
What
went
did
into
you learn? Like
franchising.
I agree with you. I can see how that would be helpful.
Hmm.
Like, what did you learn doing that? Because I mean, you and I've been in these clubhouse rooms where people are like, I want a
Yeah,
franchise, and you hear our advice and you give the same advice. Like, you probably need to test out this thing a little bit more and create
yeah.
good SOPs and processes. So
Hmm.
what was that for you? What'd you learn?
I know what it's like to go into a school cold and try to sell them on a program they've never heard of. That's a barrier for a lot of franchisees. Like, what is that? I know exactly how they feel. I know exactly how a teacher feels when you go into a school and you've got to move the furniture and things aren't going. I know all the possible problems. I had so many of them. Like, and that's what business is. Like, I think we can all agree it's basically solving problems one after another and
Yep.
being good with people. Like, that's what I kind of sum it up with our franchise owners. I'm like, you're going to solve problems and you need to treat people well, and then you will get a long way down the path if you can
Yeah.
do those two things. So I know exactly what our franchise owners go through. I know exactly what happens when a customer is upset with you. I know, like all of things. I've sent the email to the mom that you missed something, even though she actually missed 50 emails ahead of that. Now I'm that mom that's that person. But I've walked in their shoes. I've walked in the teacher's shoes, and that is, for me, has been invaluable in coaching our franchisees. I know what they have gone through because I did it for 10 years. It wasn't just a little bit. It was, and I went into a new market. I went into a market that Sarah had been in, so I know what that was like. We've changed teachers. We've just seen a lot of those scenarios already play out, which is the shorthand we give our franchisees, which to me is the beauty of franchising,
Yep.
is you're avoiding so many of the pitfalls that somebody already did. Like, I've done all those for you. Like, let me help you sidestep those and get you to the goal faster.
I love that because franchisees are going to say it's different in my market. It's different over here. You don't know what it's like, but like you can say, no, I know what it's like. And
Yeah.
not just because I did it for a month or two, I lived this
Hmm.
for a long time. I
Hmm.
love that. So
Yeah.
so now you had, how many different markets were you in, or roughly how many markets were you in before you started a franchise?
So we were in, let's see, really we had like 4 or 5, really, like
It's
kind of,
great.
we as far as managers. Yeah.
And then,
And
and then you franchised it. What was that like?
so we franchised because we were trying to, like all things in business, we kind of rose from the ashes. We were trying to pursue a children's television show. We really wanted to work, like at that point, Sarah and I were doing all the dance classes, and we thought we had these stories and ideas. We have characters. Like in our company, we have character. We actually write our own music too. So we've got characters, and so we have all these visions of wanting to have fun. Taking our classes that were so engaging and people responded to. We're like, we need to get this everywhere. We should have videos and all this stuff. So we were pursuing that, and we ended up meeting some people in LA that had been working with us for a little bit. And the first face to face was nice people, totally a terrible business setup. It was never going to work. And it was awful. So we go to LA. This was like 2 weeks after I got married. So I'm 24, and I was like, oh my gosh, this sucks. This is never going to work. This dream is dead. And we were there with some people, and they were like, have you ever thought about franchising? And Sarah and I were like, no, we really haven't thought about it. I mean, I've heard of it, but I hadn't thought about it. So we were like, okay, that could be something.
Hmm.
It was like we've already proven it. So I went back home. At that time I lived in Cincinnati. I went back home. I got Franchise Management for Dummies, and I started reading through it and like figuring out what that looked like, and started writing, found a consultant, and then that kind of, we were off to the races.
So then, so you started franchising. How many franchisees did you get your first, or how many franchisees did you get before you went on Shark Tank?
We had 7. We
Seven
had 7 when
franchisees.
we showed up to Shark Tank. Yeah, we spent like a year with this consultant, helping us kind of just get like, what is an FDD? What does that mean? Writing the franchise manual, kind of going through those things. Also, still, of course, managing all of our other operations. And then we sold our first franchise in 2009, and we spent 1 year with her before we did anything else because I think we
Wow.
knew we were going to have corrections to make. So we
Yeah.
thought, let's make the corrections with one instead of with more. So we spent a year with the first
Was that,
franchisee. And
looking
then
back,
after
was
that,
that smart for you
yeah,
at that time?
I I would do it. You know, in the moment you're like, I want to sell. I want the money, you know,
Yep.
I want to have those pins on the map. But
Yep.
that was also never really the goal. Like
Mm.
we knew the work that we do is really powerful for us. Like teaching kids, like being invited into families and being a part of their child's week is
Mm-hmm.
special. It's special. It's you're part of people's lives. And so
Mm-hmm.
we also weren't ever just like, let's get a sales team. We want a whole bunch of franchises. Let's hope most of them work. If they don't, you know,
Yep.
like we kind of came at it differently than that. And so that was, you know, I would do that again all day long because we made a lot of changes in that first year. And actually, we got great ideas from our franchisee. She had never
Mm-hmm.
done it either, but she was like, so when I get the dances like this is really hard. I've seen them done like this in aerobics classes. Do you think you could do this? And we were like, oh yeah, that's great. Yeah, we can do that. You know, so we corrected
Yeah.
things along the way.
So one franchisee, your first year learned a bunch, and then second year, how many did you add that year? And what was that like?
Yeah. Yeah, I think we added probably, I mean, I don't even like 3 or 4, I think that
Okay.
second
A
year.
handful.
And yeah, and it was great. I mean, it was awesome. A lot of it too was warm leads. So they were people that
Mm-hmm.
were managers or teachers that
Yep.
wanted more and understood the business and loved it and wanted ownership of it. And so that worked out really well. And another one of the early ones within the first couple of years was a customer. They were taking our classes and they were going to be just in the city for temporarily, and they were going to move and they wanted to bring it back. So, yeah, so it was a slow, you know, it's always been kind of a steady, slow grow for
Yep.
us, which has, you know, again, back to family, like you know, that's worked well for us as well, just fitting into our life.
So then you applied to be on the show called the Shark Tank. And at that time, it really was, applying to be on the show that you probably didn't really know a whole lot about. They had season 1 and they've had it. Now everybody knows about Shark Tank, but
Yeah.
back then it was season 1 and then you were on season 2. And you had this franchise model, but why did you go on the show and what happened?
So we wanted to go on the show to pitch this whole idea of this kids television show and DVDs and like dance DVDs. Let's get kids moving. You know, that was really what we were passionate about at the time. We had the franchise business going too, but we're like, shoot, Shark Tank, all this money, these connections. Let's shoot for the TV thing. Well, as they asked us about our company, they heard we are franchising and they heard, you know, whatever. They were like, if you talk about the TV show again, Kevin O'Leary said he was gonna shock us with like, you know, 700 volts of whatever, um, as only he would do. They're like, you sell, you go sign contracts. That's all you should be doing. You know, we don't want to talk about the TV show. We want to talk about your franchising business. And so, you know, we were in front of the Sharks for like an hour and, you know, on the fly, of course, Sarah and I are like, okay, whatever you want to talk about, we'll talk about. Like, let's talk about franchising.
But that
And
wasn't,
so,
you weren't
yeah,
prepared to talk about franchising at that point because that wasn't really why
no,
you were there. And
right,
then,
right.
but they saw the value in that. Looking back, was their advice right?
Um, I mean, yeah. No, you know what? No one's ever asked me that. I think so. I mean, I think we had this amazing operation, and because I'll be honest, it came so darn easy for us that it was like, I mean, yeah, I guess we could talk about that. Like, but it never felt like for us to get to 7 franchises, it never felt that hard. And so I think in a way, I don't know, but the TV show felt really hard. So it felt like we needed input and help and money and connections. But like selling franchises, like okay, yeah, I mean, we can talk about that. So I think it was so easy for us and so natural that it didn't occur to us to really even talk about that. But back to like as an entrepreneur, like we also went into Shark Tank. We studied season 1. And as any entrepreneur should know, like I can't control what they're going to do, what the editors are going to do. I can't control how anything is going to go. I can go in knowing my business, knowing the sharks, knowing what's possible. Like we went in very prepared. So they weren't going
How
to trip us up.
prepared were you? Because I've talked to different people who've been on the show. Some of them were not that prepared. Some of them were like really well prepared. Like, what did that preparation? How much time did you put into that? And like, what were some of the
Yeah.
things that you can remember? Like, oh my gosh, I did this forever.
Yeah, I remember being like, I mean, I don't know how people would do this if they had any other job because we spent so much time preparing for it. At the time, I didn't have any kids. My sister had two kids, and actually, when we were on the show, she had one on the way and didn't know it. But we, fun fact for you, but we prepared a lot. I mean, it was every day. They give you a producer that you work with, and so they would kind of work through the speech with you and whatever. But I mean, we had that thing down cold. We looked at our numbers. You know, we weren't going to be tripped up on any things. Like, you know, you should know your business anyways. But and then that was the other thing is when you go in there, the walk down the hallway, that's where like all butterflies live, because that is nerve-wracking walking down the hallway. But the minute I'm in that room and we're talking about our business, I'm like, bring it. Like I believe in what I do. I love what I do. I know what I do. I know the numbers. And so it's a lot easier to have those conversations when you're confident. So the preparation for me gave us confidence, gave me a great deal of confidence. And then like, that's what the sharks want to see. They don't want to see somebody up there like, oh, I don't really know. Like, I hope it works. I'm not sure. You know, so I was confident. Sarah was confident. We were like, this is what we've got. And so even though we had to shift in the middle and start talking about something different, again, we were so prepared that it didn't throw us off at all. And I think that played into us ending up getting a deal.
Well, I think anybody that's listening, as I hear that, it's clear why you're a successful franchisor, because of your history, because of how like you prepared for the Shark Tank. And like you said, they knew like how much preparation and how you knew your business and knew your numbers. And like, I think it was a prospective franchisee looking at Tippy Toes would just hear this and feel the confidence like, wow, Megan, like she's all in and she prepares and she's ready and she cares about her franchisees. And I could just see that giving, you know, the ultimate vote of confidence. So that, like, I love to hear that. What would be a lesson that you learned on Shark Tank that you kind of took away? Like, this is something that I took away from this experience that I'm just going to file away and use it in other areas of my life or business.
Yeah. Great question. I think there's a few that I really took away. One is that preparation leads to confidence, and confidence is attractive. You know, and preparation is free. Like, you don't have to be skilled. You don't have to spend a lot of money, but you can prepare. There's a lot you can do. You can do the work. Like, do the work. That gets you really far down the road. And that helped us. You know, I think part of it, honestly, the producers saw us. We were both under 30 and two sisters and, you know, like very smiley and happy. And I think we were perfect casting for them to be like, either like Damon called us, I don't like, they like to, you know, like play with who we were and like, look at these girls, like what, you know, like they like to play that juxtaposition of how we looked, and then like our business acumen was there, but that came from preparation and then confidence, because we were prepared. So I think you can never be too prepared, especially for something that matters. So if you're going into a meeting or you're going into a pitch, like be prepared. That will give you confidence.
Well, this makes me think about to the beginning of this conversation. It's recorded, but it's not going to make the podcast. I said, I don't prepare for my podcast. But the reason is,
this is good. Yeah.
No, go
it's
ahead.
Different. You know, it's different. Like, you're not trying to close a deal with me. This is like let's have a real conversation. Like, there's different circumstances, but I needed to go in and not stumble, you know, like if we stumble, frankly, that could lead to a fantastic conversation, you know, but in the Shark Tank, if you stumble, you drown, you get pulled down by the sharks and you're dead,
gosh.
You know,
and it lives forever and ever. So, but, you know, everyone listening, I don't prepare for these because I have, like, I know Megan's a mom of 3 daughters with a business, went to the Shark Tank, has a podcast, Who's Your Mama, with Jesse Itzler. I want to go into that at some point. And then like I said, you've been in business for 20 years, 11 years in franchising, helping franchise owners. And that's what I came in here with. And I think just, you know, my thing is authenticity and just getting to the questions that I think are interesting, that I want to ask, how I want to get to know people, and other people have the same questions. So you're right. Sure. When you're preparing for something, you need to be prepared. But when the goal is authenticity, then like here we are in the podcast talking about a rabbit trail like this. Okay. Yes, so you're in the tank, you got a deal, and then you didn't have a deal. Tell me about that.
So we went in, made a deal. It was, very exciting. We were hopeful about what would come. Mark Cuban offered a deal, and we were pumped. We leave, and we spend the next few months like working through the contract, and we communicate with Mark. He was very receptive. Like, we were excited about what was ahead. As we got into the contract, we were working with his team. There were certain things in it that really did not feel good to us. One of them was that we could never do anything else other than franchising. Well, I've already said at this point that we wanted a TV show. Like, that, just because they didn't want to invest didn't mean we didn't want to pursue that at some point. At that point, we did have albums. We write our own children's music, which furthers our brand and makes our franchise more valuable, because we have like this whole collection of music and class content that is branded in Tippy Toes. But like, the idea of a partner saying don't do anything else other than this, well, that didn't suit us at all, and they weren't willing to negotiate that. And so it was like, do we want the money and the partnership, or do we want to be true to who we are? And so we thought about it a lot. We had a lot of conversations. It wasn't an easy decision, but the minute we made the decision, I haven't regretted it for a second. Because one of the other lessons I learned in Shark Tank was there are no silver bullets.
Mm-hmm. That's a good one.
Being on Shark Tank, like, I think a lot of times people are like, I just need to get on Shark Tank. If I just got on Shark Tank, then everything would, like, no, like, that doesn't, you get on Shark Tank and it's great and it was fun and I value it and I appreciate it and the opportunity was fantastic. That does not mean that now, like, people beg me for franchises. And everybody else that's been on it, like, I think Shark Tank is great as a last ditch. I'm either going to have to close or I'm going to get a deal. Like, then I think it makes sense. Other than that, like, it is just an experience. So for me, business, everything that we do, there is not a silver bullet. It's all just a step in the process. It's all just like strengthening your story, teaching you a lesson, whatever it is. And so, walking away from the deal with Mark, confirmed that that wouldn't have solved my issues if he was my partner and gave us money. That wouldn't have just been, I don't have any issues to solve, but it wouldn't have like made my life cake after that point. There are plenty of partnerships, you guys can look them up, that they get a deal, they make a deal, they have a business with Shark Tank, with a shark, and then they're bankrupt. Like, that happens. So there isn't a silver bullet in business. There never will be. There never has been. I think there is one shortcut in business, and honestly, it's franchising. Like, it is the one way that you can kind of get further down the road in a sound way because you have this support. But in general, there's not one thing that's going to change the course of your business. I think people like look at like the unicorn businesses and think that's going to be me. It's like, first of all, you don't know the whole history of it. And second of all, it's called a unicorn for a reason. So don't go chasing the silver bullet. Don't go chasing that unicorn, because you're going to be disappointed, and it's not reality.
So many franchisees that I've been around, myself included, want the silver bullet when it comes to marketing or getting customers or whatever it is. So, we all want it, but we also know that that's called a unicorn, and it just doesn't exist. And if it does, you got lightning in a bottle, and you just can't duplicate that. It's not you can't replicate it. It's just, take it for what it is. It's not your genius. It's like, it's a unicorn. That's good. So you wanted the deal. You wanted to make it. Let me say it this way. You wanted to make a deal. You didn't want to necessarily need to execute the deal, but you wanted to make a deal. Why?
Yeah. There's strategy involved. Like, I'm going to be on national television, and I've seen what they do in the Shark Tank. And so we were willing to make a deal because we knew that if we made a deal, it was a lot less likely that they were going to make us look like fools on national television. And when you sign that contract, the contract is not like, we got your back, boo, we're going to protect you and we'll make you look good. It's like, don't sue us, because we're, it's intense, so we were going in with some strategy of like, we need to make sure that we are doing everything we can to get a deal. And luckily for us, we had a lot of interest, and for the most part, it was definitely a very positive experience, and the feedback was great. But you go in with some idea of of how things are going to look on the back end. I had no control over how they were going to edit it. And it was interesting to see how they did edit it. I was like, wow, we were in there for an hour and they show 8 minutes. So you can imagine the chopping, slicing, and dicing that happened. But, yeah, I mean, we wanted a deal because, one, we wanted a deal in the long term. Like, that'd be great. Like, it'd be amazing to have a deal. But also, just functionality of like being on the show. We didn't want to be shark bait.
That's interesting. Just to even have that going into it, knowing that you want a deal, because you can always get out of the deal, but just to make a deal, because if you're so close and there's a lot of words that get said up until that point, I'm sure. And then that's interesting. I love that about you. Okay. So bring us up to speed. Where are we today with Tippy Toes?
Yeah, so we have 35 domestic franchises around the country. We've got, a lot of it in the center of the country, but we also have, DC area, Florida, California, Oklahoma, Texas, Kansas, Missouri, Kentucky. We're kind of up the strip all the way up to Minnesota in the middle, which is great. We are we're really going to be pushing in 2021 to increase our growth, which will be a new approach for us and how we're going to do it, which I'm really excited about. In 2020, we sold our first international master franchise, which was awesome. And that was interesting. It just came to us, they were a customer. They were coming overseas and they happened to go to our Tippy Toes class. They had a little daughter. She went in Tippy Toes. They loved it. And they actually, that family was a part of another master franchise that started in the United States that they brought over to China. And they came back to work on that. They discovered Tippy Toes, and then we were just a really good fit in their portfolio. And so we have a master franchise in China, and it's great. We've gotten through the pandemic. I mean, I know none of us are through it. I don't know when this will air, but I feel it's probably safe to say when this airs, we will still be getting through it. But we haven't lost anybody. We're keeping our head above water. I mean, it's been a challenge. I'm not going to act like it hasn't been hard. We go into schools and offer classes on site. Like, it has
so when
impacted our
schools
business.
are shut down and your business models that go into schools and offer classes on site. So what's been probably, let me ask you it this way. What are your franchisees most happy with you about? If you were to talk to a franchisee and they would say, Megan and the corporate team did this for us, what would they say?
I mean, I think they would say we had their back and we helped them get through this time. We did what we needed to do on our end to make it survivable for them. We kept the communication open. We pivoted them. We gave them another opportunity for revenue streams during this time. I mean, they were, I've said this before, but like, I didn't even feel the pandemic for the first couple months, like March and April, because I was working around the clock trying to figure out how we could keep our franchisees afloat when schools shut down, and when we couldn't be face to face. And so I think they would definitely say that they know that their interest is my priority and their well-being.
That's amazing.
I mean, that's what Sarah and I spend our days doing, is trying to serve them and trying to help them. And in ways, definitely that I want their business to thrive, but I understand they're all women at this point. They have families. During COVID, like, everybody was scared. That was hard. That was hard to have people coming to you scared. People respond differently to crisis. It was a crisis. And, we have people in DC and California. It's very different than what was going on with people in Texas. So, we did our best to manage the highs and lows of everyone's emotions, but I think they would, number one, say they know we had their back and that we would do everything we could to keep it afloat, which we definitely did. And, I'm really proud of that, to be honest. Like, in my whole experience of business, I think where we stand right now makes me the most proud, because we went through the fire and we all came out of it right now, and now there's light at the end of the tunnel. Now I see shots going in arms. I'm like, we rode the bull. Like, we got through the 8 seconds and we're going to be okay. We're going to be okay. And that's probably the most proud I've ever been, is how we have fared during the biggest crisis. And listen, we've been in business since 1999. We've gone through all the ups and downs. We were fine in 2008. Like, when kids like are happy at their dance class, that's the last thing to go for a family.
Yep.
And that's the first thing they're going to want back when they're face to face. So
Yeah,
I'm
and a lot
really
of people don't
encouraged by
think that.
that.
A lot of people don't think that. They think like, oh, that's just an extra expense that they don't want.
Mm-hmm.
But if that makes a happy kid, a happy wife, a happy dad, I mean,
Yeah.
that's a thing that's important to families. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
with you on that. Let's transition a little bit because I saw you had or have a podcast. Who's Your Mama? Jesse Itzler. Give me that whole thing, because I just think this just goes into who you are and the tenacity that you have and just how you think. So
Thank you.
I'm interested in that.
Okay, so my podcast is called Who is Your Mama? And it is, so what happened is having babies and doing nap schedules and diapers, and I'm running Tippy Toes and loving it, but I still felt like I want to do a little something more, but I couldn't. I was in it, and, there wasn't like a nanny coming and taking, like I was in it as I wanted to be. But I had all these thoughts and ideas. And then as my kids started to grow, I was like, I really want them to be good people. How do I do that? Like, there's no parenting manual. What am I doing? Am I making good decisions? So I always wanted to talk to my mom.
There's a book called What to Expect When You're Expecting, but I think that's when it stops.
Exactly. That's it. That's it. Then you get nothing else. It's not like how to raise a kid that's, positive, how to raise a kid that's ambitious, how to raise a kid that's polite, it's all those
stuff, like the important stuff.
Yeah. And also, by the way, you could read what doctors say, but like that's theoretical. And I wanted the real story. And so I had this idea and I came up with the name and I was like, all right, this feels good to me. And also for me, I've served moms and parents and families since 1999. Like I have been, like, even when I didn't understand it, like when I was 24 and they'd come late to class and I'm like, how are you late? And now I'm like, oh, I know how you're late because I'm late and I get it. And your child had a blowout before you left. And I totally get it now. So I know them, and I knew them before I was them. Now I am that target market. And so I just was really excited at the idea, but I also couldn't really do anything yet based on my life and parenthood and where I was and everything. And then all my kids were going to be in school for at least preschool for 5 hours a day. So I was like, I'm doing it. So I started actually putting action steps in place after priming it in my head for probably a year and a half, as I'm like legit nursing babies still. Then I was like, all right, it's go time. Everyone's in school. I start cold DMing people that I'm like, I want to talk to their mom, reverse engineer parenthood. But I wanted to talk to, the people. Like I wanted to talk to Sarah Blakely's mom. I want to talk to, Beyonce's mom. I want to talk to the moms and find out, like, what was it like when you were raising them? Like, how did you do that? What did you think? What did you hope for them? How did you do this? What conversations were you having? So anyways, I reached out to people. I have zero connections.
Wait, so were you reaching out to their moms, or were you reaching out to them, or both?
Both. I would reach out to anybody that I could get a hold of. Moms are harder to find a lot of times, but I would do the research. Are they still alive? That's the first question, because it's not a question you want to ask somebody to talk to, deceased parent. Are they connected with them? So I had a lot of times go to their Instagram posts from Mother's Day. I would scroll back, mom's alive. They like them. It's a positive thing. Can I find the mom? So I did all those things, sitting on the couch, whatever at night. And so anyway, so I started sending DMs. Not a lot of response. I have no connection. I have nothing. Jesse Itzler posted a really great video of his parents doing this cute little thing together. And I was like, oh, that'd be great, because I love Jesse. I love his energy. Reached out to him, cold DM. He doesn't know me from Adam. And he replies, that sounds awesome. I'd love to do it. And I was like, first of all, how do I do a podcast? I don't have a microphone. I don't know how I'm going to do anything. Long story short, I get his interview with his mom and I send it to him, and he loved it. He's made him cry. He thought it was great. He said, I want you to interview Sarah's mom. So his wife is Sarah Blakely, the founder of Spanx.
Yeah. Quick update on who Jesse Itzler is and quick update on who Sarah Blakely is.
Okay. So Jesse Itzler is a prolific entrepreneur. He started a jet company in his 20s, sold it to Warren Buffett. He started, he was a part of a water brand, sold it to Coca-Cola. He now has an amazing coaching brand called Build Your Life Resume. And he does all these different adventures adventures. He's written New York Times bestselling books. He lived with a monk. Lived with the monks for a month. He had a Navy SEAL. Living with the SEALs was one of his it's an amazing book. So he's very available. He's hilarious. He runs 100-mile races. He has 4 kids. He is authentic. He is a great businessman, and he is.
And he doesn't look like or act like your normal businessman either. And he's married to Sarah Blakely. No, who's Sarah?
Sarah Blakely is the founder.
For all the guys that may not know. For all the guys that may not know.
Yes. If you don't know who Sarah Blakely is, you are mistaken, because she is unbelievable. She is, she started Spanx on her own. She wrote her own patent. She cut her pantyhose one day to go to a party and turn that into a $1 billion business. It is a $1 billion business. It is incredible. It's based in Atlanta. She owns it fully herself. She never had investors. And she is the same as Jesse, as far as not your typical CEO, founder, stuffy, unapproachable. They're the most approachable people on the planet. So, and frankly, also, I greatly look up to both of them. At this time, I did, even before I reached out to them. And so Jesse loved it. I was over the moon. He said, I want you to interview Sarah's mom. I passed out. I couldn't believe it. And so then a few months go by, and I hadn't gotten Sarah's mom because she was a little uneasy. But then Jesse is like, can I have a call with you? I'm like, yes, I think I can pencil you in. And he said, listen, I'm starting this app called BYLR Radio. So his brand is BYLR, Build Your Life Resume. I'm starting this 24/7 radio streaming app called BYLR Radio. I want your show to be on my podcast or on my radio streaming app exclusively. Well, at this point, I'd interviewed 4 people. I had no idea what I was doing. And I was yeah, 1,000% yes. And so that's how it all started. I ended up interviewing Sarah's mom, and it was fantastic. And it's been picked up for various stories with CNBC, and that interview was unbelievable. So my podcast lives on BYLR Radio. It's a 24-hour free radio streaming app with a bunch of other cool podcasts with really great business people, wellness, parenting. And so, yeah, so it's really fun, and it's been an incredible experience to be a part. It's interesting because I've been a franchisor. I've been the boss always. I've always been in charge. So now being a part of a group in a different way has helped me as a franchisor, because you experience things in a different role, and it helps me as a leader. As long as I'm paying attention to what's going on, I can be okay, I like how they did this. I see why this could be a problem if this happened or whatever. So the experience has been awesome. I've met incredible people. Now Sarah Blakely's in my phone. I can shoot her a text. It's very exciting and very fun. And it just goes back to chase the things that you're into, just follow it, and you never know what could come of it. So
I love that. Just take a risk and reach out to people. And it's amazing. One time you might be able to reach someone, and that connection turns into something else, and you've just got to take risks. There's people out there right now that are just in a job, a dead-end job, or it maybe be a really high-paying dead-end job, but they're listening to this and it's wow, this is entrepreneurship, and this is what we do, and this is what anybody can do.
And I think people are worried about their failures. The thing is nobody else cares about your failures. They're freaked out about their own, or they're focused on so who cares if you fail? If this, I don't care. I have to, then I'm going to take the lessons from it. I'm going to make it work. So I just think if I'm going to bet on anybody, I'm going to bet on myself. And then I can control everything else. It's going to, I can be in charge of carrying the weight of it, carrying the burden of it, carrying the workload, carrying the wins, whatever it is, it's on me. And I like that. I want that accountability, and I'm good for it.
Megan, it's clear to me why your franchisees would say what they would say about you and the team that you have, and how you care about them and how you put them first. It's so crystal clear to me. How do people find you? They're like, hey, I like this Megan lady. This Tippy Toes is something that's kind of interesting to me. How do they find you?
Yeah, that would be awesome. We'd love it. We are definitely looking to expand too. So, I'm all over LinkedIn. Everything's Megan L. Reilly. It's Reilly. I'm on LinkedIn and Instagram, as is Tippy Toes. Tippy Toes is Tippi. Sometimes that throws people off, but it's tippytoesdance.com. You can check out our website. And we are here. What we love is that for us, dance is the vehicle. but we are really about being a part of a community, serving kids, bringing confidence to them through dance classes, making this human connection with them, and hopefully giving them the groundwork to then like go into their life feeling confident, knowing they can learn things that are hard and meet friends. And it's really, it's just such a special thing to be a part of. And I didn't know how special that would be and how much it would mean to me. But it is also what has propelled us for 22 years, because I believe in my bones the power of what we are doing. And I just love it. So I would love for people to reach out. I love it. I'm I'm all over LinkedIn and Instagram and all of that.
You can also find her in the Franchise Secrets Facebook group. franchisesecretsgroup.com. Go to franchisesecretsgroup.com. We have a cool community there. It's a free Facebook group. People are in there just adding value. Someone came in the other day, tried to take somebody offline to have a conversation. I said, no, that's not going to happen. Give value in the group, because this isn't about getting customers, pitching anything. This is about, if you have something of value to add, do it in the Facebook group. So all 800 people in the Facebook group can get value out of it versus having a one-off conversation trying to get a customer. And
hey, I've been in that group for just a minute, and it's powerful. What I love is the variety of perspectives that you have cultivated there. It's really incredible. And it's also a positive community too. Like it's very like, let's troubleshoot, let's help, let's support. You've done an amazing job of cultivating that and curating it so that it's high value.
I had like anybody can people that had done really well building groups, and they taught me some things early on with the first members and how to set the culture and just how it is. And it kind of polices itself. You know, there's no negativity in there, because the members just, that's this group. This group isn't about that. And so I had mentors that taught me how to build a group, how to build it the right way. And it's like with everything, you know, I saw all these big Facebook groups out there, and you think, oh my gosh, I need to have a big Facebook group. And it starts out really small and kind of trickles in. And then we opened it up to everybody, and it mostly full of franchisees and some franchisors, but it's a fun group. Anyone check it out, franchisesecretsgroup.com. Megan, this has been so much fun. Like, I've enjoyed getting to know you more, and I'm sure we'll be friends forever now. But any last bits of wisdom that you would leave the listeners with?
Thank you. I've enjoyed this too, Erik. I'm really excited to have gotten to more time with you. My message is to take action. Like, if you've got this thing in your mind, like, take action, and not planning action, not theoretical action. Like, do something that could lead to a reaction. I think there's a big thing. People are like, yeah, I've got these ideas and these thoughts, but it's like, do something around your dream that's going to cause a reaction. So maybe it's a cold DM, because when you get that cold DM back, then you're going to be set into motion, and you don't have to know the end of the story to start writing it.
I love that. I have nothing to add. Thank you.
Thanks, Erik.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Franchise Secrets Podcast. Whether you're watching or listening, please make sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel and to whatever channel you're listening on. If you want my help with anything from buying a franchise to franchising your business, please visit franchisesecrets.com.